Gyeongju, a city that holds 1,000 years of history. The cherished values preserved over time have shaped who we are today. Now, through new encounters, we step into a better future. Sustainability, innovation. With the spirit of connection, a new millennium story begins. As APEC and Gyeongju come together. APEC meets Gyeongju.
In our headlines on this Tuesday, October 28th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung is poised to sit down with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump for a second summit on Wednesday, this time here in South Korea, on the margins of the APEC leaders' meeting. And Mr. Trump reiterates his hopes of meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un here in this part of the world if possible, reigniting much speculation about a possible summit this week. Meanwhile, South Korea's economy accelerates faster than expected in the third quarter, rising 1.2% on quarter, led by government stimulus and export resilience. President Lee Jae-myung will be hosting his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump for bilateral talks on Wednesday on the margins of the APEC leaders' meeting in Gyeongju. Now, ahead of that summit, Mr. Trump responded to questions about prospects for a trade deal with South Korea. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers his response.
On Monday, aboard Air Force One during his ongoing Asia tour, U.S. President Donald Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent were asked whether the trade deal with South Korea could fall apart.
No, I don't think so, Scott, is there?
No, there are just a lot of details to work out. It's a very complicated deal, and I think we're very close.
But when asked whether it could be done by Wednesday when President Lee Jae-myung and President Trump meet in Gyeongju, he said that is not likely.
I think not quite, but I think the overall framework is done. We're just getting crossing the T's, dotting the I's.
Trump has been saying a deal is close for some time, and there was some hope that an agreement could be made to coincide with a meeting between President Lee and President Trump at APEC. Before departing for Asia a few days earlier, Trump had said, "If South Korea is ready, I am ready." However, a tug-of-war is still underway between the two sides regarding the methods and timeline for South Korea's $350 billion investment in the U.S. Trump was also asked whether South Korea had asked to extend visa quotas as part of the trade deal following the ICE raid in Hyundai's plant in Georgia in September.
No, but you know how I feel. I was very much opposed. Look, when they come in and they're making very complex machinery, equipment, things, they're going to have to bring some people in, at least at the initial phase. In that case, it was batteries. You can't just pick people off an unemployment line and say, we just, opened up a $2 billion battery factory. They'll teach our people how to do it.
The U.S. president added that such measures would take time, but that's the way it is. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, Russia's Vladimir Putin sat down with North Korea's top diplomat Yesan-gun at the Kremlin on Monday, ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's arrival here in South Korea. Our Yesan-gun covers that meeting in Russia and Mr. Trump's latest hopes of meeting North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met North Korean Foreign Minister Yesan-gun at the Kremlin on Monday.
Здравствуйте. Очень рада вас видеть. Благодарна за то, что...
During the meeting, the Russian leader also stressed that relations between the two countries are developing according to plan. According to Russian media, Putin recalled his recent discussions with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, including their last meeting in Beijing, and said the two sides talked in detail about the development of bilateral ties. He added that everything is going according to plan in the best possible way, signaling Moscow's continued effort to deepen cooperation with Pyongyang amid growing international scrutiny. Che began her 3-day visit to Moscow on Sunday as part of a 2-nation trip that also includes Belarus. Her visit comes at a time of heightened diplomatic activity in the region as South Korea hosts the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit this week. The timing has drawn attention with speculation over whether another meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump could take place on the Korean Peninsula. Speaking to reporters aboard his presidential plane en route to Japan on Monday, President Trump said he would love to meet Kim during his Asia trip, even suggesting he could extend his stay if necessary.
I haven't mentioned it, I haven't said anything, but I'd love to meet with him if he'd like to meet. I got along great with Kim Jong-un. I liked him, he liked me. If he wants to meet, I'll be in South Korea.
Trump and Kim met 3 times during Trump's first term, first in Singapore in June 2018, then in Hanoi in February 2019, and finally at the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom in June 2019. As diplomatic signals intensify once again, attention is now turning to whether a new chapter in U.S.-North Korea relations might unfold alongside Moscow's renewed engagement with Pyongyang. 이승재, Arirang News.
In other news, preliminary findings by the central bank show the South Korean economy grew 1.2% on quarter in the third quarter, driven by exports and consumption here at home. Our Park Junan has the latest numbers.
The Bank of Korea reported on Tuesday that South Korea's real GDP grew 1.2% in the third quarter from the previous quarter, marking the strongest growth since the first quarter of 2024. Preliminary growth rates recorded 1.2% in the first quarter of 2024, before falling to minus 0.2% in the second quarter. Subsequently, both the third and fourth quarters in 2024 showed sluggish growth in the 0.1% range. The first quarter of 2025 also saw a setback with a decline of 0.2%. However, following a rebound in the second quarter, the third quarter maintained a growth rate of 1.2%, signaling a recovery trend. The bank attributed the recovery of private consumption and steady exports as key reasons for the strong growth.
The growth was mainly driven by solid exports of semiconductors, automobiles, and petroleum products, along with a sharp rise in private consumption supported by improved sentiment, livelihood recovery consumption coupons, and new product launches. Increased facility investment and a smaller decline in construction investment also contributed to GDP growth.
Compared to the same period last year, real GDP growth in the third quarter is projected to increase by 1.7%. Private consumption grew 1.3%, driven by spending on goods such as motor vehicles and services, including restaurants. Now, this is the highest level of private consumption growth in 3 years. For government consumption, it rose by 1.2%, mainly due to expenditure on goods and healthcare benefits. This is also the highest level of growth in 2 years and 9 months. However, construction investment shrank by 0.1%, primarily due to the continued decline in the industry. Real gross domestic income, which reflects trade-adjusted income, also increased by 0.7%. The central bank said it will closely monitor sectors such as automobiles, as exports to the U.S. have been declining due to tariffs, and will assess how they respond in the fourth quarter. It also highlighted the lingering impact of consumption coupons and uncertainties in construction investment as variables affecting the economy's future growth. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
There are a number of other international forums taking place during this APEC week here in South Korea. And one such gathering, the Global Green Growth Week's agenda, coincides with that of this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Joint efforts for a sustainable future are gaining momentum ahead of the APEC forum in Korea this week. as regional economies prepare to discuss how AI and innovation can be harnessed for the next stage of growth. Global Green Growth Week kicked off on Monday, convening policymakers, experts, firms, and young people from around 100 countries. This year's sessions, held in Seoul and Gyeongju, coincide with APEC in both timing and significance, with over 2,000 people expected to take part online and in person. Major themes range from sustainable artificial intelligence and innovation to green finance and carbon markets, all aligned with APEC's theme of building a sustainable future. The five-day event began with a focus on youth participation and innovation, with former United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon bringing generations together in climate leadership.
We're the future generation of this world, and it's important that we learn about the climate crisis and we can know how to take it on and how to battle this challenge sustainably. Organised by the Global Green Growth Institute, the week will notably feature a high-level roundtable between the region's climate ambassadors, and an event on Wednesday will commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Paris Climate Agreement reached in 2015 by 196 nations. Since its founding in 2012, GGGI has supported dozens of partner countries in developing renewable energy strategies, carbon pricing systems, and green finance plans to support their long-term sustainable development.
And since 2018, we have been supporting the government of Burkina Faso into its transition towards a green economy. It means supporting the development or the upgrading of policies, better integrating the principle of green growth. But it's also about mobilizing resources, financial resources needed to implement these policies and strategies.
It's a particular challenge in an era of dwindling development assistance budgets. During the week, GGGI will sign 12 new memoranda of understanding with investors, local governments, and philanthropic organizations to expand cooperation on green finance and carbon markets.
I believe that despite all the conflicts among countries and the policy leaders as well, it's really important to remember that climate changes are part of the life of all people around the world.
Exploring solutions through dialogue and forging stronger partnerships, Global Green Growth Week promotes collective action at a time when multilateralism is much needed. Young, Arirang News.
Security has been heightened in and around the host city of this year's APEC event as Gyeongju welcomes political leaders, economic pundits and corporate heavyweights this week. Our Yesan-gun has details.
Starting Tuesday, security has been raised to the highest level in Gyeongju, the host city of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. Ahead of the arrival of key world leaders for the meeting, riot police, armored vehicles, and anti-drone systems have been deployed. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to arrive in South Korea on Wednesday and meet with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung in Gyeongju. In and around the Pomun Tourist Complex, where the summit will be held and many leaders will be staying, police have activated the top Kapo alert, the highest police emergency level. Streets and sidewalks in the Pomun area have been blocked off with rows of barriers and checkpoints. Helicopters and the Army's armored vehicles are also on standby around leaders' lodgings and the Gyeongju Hwabaek International Convention Center, which is the summit's main venue, where a full security checkpoint, tightly controlled and similar to those at airports, has also been installed at the entrance. At the Gyeongju Arts Center, where the CEO Summit event will be held, detection dogs have been deployed to check for any signs of explosive or dangerous goods. The airspace around the venue has been designated as a no-fly zone, with anti-drone and drone interception systems in place to guard against potential aerial threats. Police patrol cars will frequently travel around the summit venue areas, as they also escort diplomatic vehicles through various security road closures. Police are on high alert, as the National Police Agency said it has received 17 advance notifications of planned political rallies around the APEC site this week. During the week of the APEC summit, up to 19,000 personnel will be mobilized each day to ensure security across Gyeongju. Yesan-gun, Arirang News.
And now, beyond business, Gyeongju is a city rich in culture, as it was the capital of the ancient kingdom of Silla. That being said, our Park Hyo-bin highlights an exhibition there that shares a glimpse of this heritage.
The host city of APEC 2025 Korea, Gyeongju was once the capital of the ancient Silla kingdom that shaped Korea's golden age of art and culture. Now an exhibition titled Scent of Korea in Silla is underway at the Gyeongju Expo Solgo Art Museum, bringing the spirit of Silla back to life.
Based on Sinla's culture and history, this exhibition aims to share Korea's heritage with the world and shed new light on its historical value.
Upon entry, visitors are greeted by a 5-meter scroll of silver principal Buddha from Seokguram Grotto, flanked by Tabotap and Seokgatap, Korea's most iconic stone pagodas. Each piece is painted with real gold and silver, capturing the spiritual glow of the Silla era. In front, a black pond reflects both the artworks and the viewer, linking past, present, and future. Another section connects tradition with modernity through glass art. Some 250 recycled glass bottles symbolize both stability and Silla's long history of cultural exchange along the Silk Road.
I wanted to revive the shapes of Roman glass that once entered Silla through the Silk Road, using today's glassmaking techniques.
The highlight of the exhibition is the masterpiece by artist Park Dae-sung, the largest work of his 80-year career. Behind me is Korea Fantasy, a 12-meter-long painting that brings together Korea's most iconic symbols. Looking closely, it's filled with the essence of Korean heritage, from Hawaii masks to the smile of Silla, all set against a panoramic Korean landscape. Through these works, the exhibition reimagines Silla's flourishing era of culture, trade, and Buddhism, a reflection of how its legacy continues to breathe through the art of modern Korea. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News, Gyeongju.
Israel has lifted all remaining emergency measures imposed on Gaza since its war against Hamas began 2 years ago. Israel first declared a nationwide state of emergency after the militant group's appalling attack on October 7, 2023. Since then, the measure has been maintained in the southern region in recent months. The announcement follows the ceasefire brokered earlier this month by U.S. President Donald Trump that continues to hold with relative stability. 2 South Korean men in their 20s have been sentenced to prison for their roles in a large-scale stock investment scam based in Cambodia. The Cheonan branch of Daejeon District Court on Tuesday handed each of them prison terms of 5 years and 6 months for joining a criminal organization known as K9, which lured victims through fake stock recommendation chat rooms. After entering Cambodia via Vietnam, the two worked as managers and translators, helping Chinese ringleaders target South Korean investors. They deceived 25 victims out of more than 3.1 billion Korean won, or some $2.1 million by promising returns of up to 300%. South Korea's state-run power company KEPCO has won a major renewable energy contract in Saudi Arabia. According to Saudi Arabia's state news agency SPA, the Saudi power procurement company assigned 5 new solar and wind projects totaling 4,500 megawatts and worth over $2.5 billion. KEPCO, together with Saudi renewable firm Nesma, will lead the 1,500 megawatt Dawatmi wind power project near Riyadh. Other contracts went to major global players such as Mazda from the UAE and France's EDF and Total Energies. For those of you interested in a farm stay experience, a trip to Yesan-gun County in Chungcheongnam-do province may be one option. Our Cha Yun-kyung tells us why.
A giant structure has been built near the reservoir, namely Yedangho Observation Tower, which opened at the beginning of October. The 360-degree view from a height of 70 meters captivates the eyes of the visitors.
I was amazed by its size. The view here is great, too. Our family will have a great time around here.
Right behind the observatory, visitors can find a village for accommodation and a farm, where they can have a hands-on experience of farming and spend the night with their family. Yedan-ho Suspension Bridge, which opened in 2019, has become a must-see attraction for visitors to Yesan-gun County. Visitors can also enjoy the beautiful scenery while riding a train around the reservoir or have a thrilling experience soaring through the air on adventure rides. Yedan-ho Lake is evolving into a multi-experience tourist destination, attracting 50,000 visitors during the recent Chuseok holiday alone.
As the Yedan Reservoir area has been developed into a tourist destination, more visitors have been coming, which is great for us. There are now more things to see and enjoy.
The county expects to boost the local economy by introducing a wider form of tourism, including attractions such as Yesan Market and Toksan Hot Spa. 차윤경, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In his first visit to Japan since returning to office, U.S. President Donald Trump met Japan's Emperor Naruhito. The two met at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo on Monday and exchanged views on global conflicts and peace, with Trump expressing hope to strengthen U.S.-Japan relations. Emperor Naruhito said he was pained by ongoing conflicts worldwide and prayed for peace. While in Japan, Trump will meet new Prime Minister Takaichi for their first bilateral summit, expected to focus on trade, defense, and rare earth cooperation. The talks come as Japan pledges to expand defense spending and invest heavily in U.S. technology and energy sectors. Trump's visit highlights Washington's efforts to reinforce alliances amid growing regional tensions. Aboard Air Force One, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday he would, quote, love a third term in office. Speaking to reporters during his Asia tour, Trump dismissed talk of running for vice president in 2028 as a loophole to stay in office, calling it, quote, too cute and not right. Trump said he hadn't really thought about a third term, but boasted that his poll numbers are the best they've ever been. Instead, he said potential successors could include Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, calling them, quote, unstoppable. Under the 22nd Amendment, U.S. presidents are limited to 2 terms, and repealing that rule would require a constitutional change, something experts say is highly unlikely. Trump's remarks come amid speculation from supporters who claim there is already a plan for 2028. In the Caribbean, Hurricane Melissa has strengthened into a Category 5 storm and is closing in on Jamaica with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and the potential for catastrophic flooding and landslides. Forecasters on Monday said the storm could be the most powerful ever recorded to hit the island, with a 13-foot storm surge expected to hit the capital, Kingston. Authorities have warned of a humanitarian crisis and ordered mandatory evacuations in flood-prone areas, though many residents are refusing to leave. At least 6 people across the Caribbean have already died from the storm. In Los Angeles on Sunday night, Vogue World Hollywood transformed the historic Paramount Studios lot into a live cinematic runway, merging fashion and film in a star-studded charity event. The show had 7 chapters, each celebrating a different film genre from Afrofuturism to Gothic Westerns. Nicole Kidman opened the night with a musical tribute before stars and models walked the outdoor runway, some wearing original movie costumes. All proceeds went to the Entertainment Community Fund, supporting costume professionals affected by recent Los Angeles wildfires. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Even though it is still October, the air already feels like winter. This morning, the temperature plunged even lower than yesterday, making the coldest this fall in most parts of the country. There were many areas where the temperatures fell below 0, and the first frost and ice were observed mainly in the central parts of the country and inland areas of Gyeongsangbuk-do province. This early winter cold will continue until tomorrow morning and ease off from the afternoon. The daytime temperature in Seoul will rise to 17 degrees Celsius, and the temperature will recover to the average for this time of year. Seoul will start off at 5 degrees tomorrow morning, Daejeon and Daegu at 4 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 16 to 20 degrees all over the country. Starting from the central parts of the country on Friday night, it will rain around the west on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up shortly after this break is our daily panel session. And today we touch upon the APEC CEO Summit and more with our group of foreign correspondents based here in South Korea. Thank you for now.
이 논슬립 양말의 제일 큰 특징이 땀 흡수가 잘 되고 안 미끄러진다는 거니까 우리가 지금 물을 준비했단 말이에요. 타쿠마가 덜 밀리면 이게 재미가 없으니까 빠르게 와서 쫙 서봐요. 우와! 안 가지? 너무 안 가. 안 가. 진짜 안 가. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the critical moment that decides the match. Do socks really make a difference in performance? One wrong move here and it's game over. And just as I say that, he breaks through. And what a header! Oh, look at his footwork. No slipping at all. Thanks to the double-layer non-slip socks, he locks the feet perfectly to the ground. The grip of the polyurethane pads is incredible. It reduces muscle strain while maintaining full rebound power. These aren't just socks. This is performance-engineered tech. Introducing WeFoot non-slip technology.
Hoping that all the meals here serve as a foundation of its practices. The process of making a meal requires deep interconnectedness. And being thankful for the effort is the first step forward. Tastes rendered by time, scented by nature, temple food is made with the wisdom of its practitioners, and it's a peaceful meal to fill your heart. Gratitude is the core of the practice. The refrain from the 5 pungent ingredients supports mental clarity and mindfulness. Refraining from taking the life of any living being, practicing to cherish all life. Satisfying your hunger and emptying your mind. Food can nourish the body and cultivate awareness.
keeping gratitude and relationships in mind, finding peace within yourself. Temple food, seeking to calm and clear the mind.
The largest private sector forum linked to the broader APEC agenda is the APEC CEO Summit. And South Korea hopes this year the platform serves as an opportunity for renewed commitment to regional cooperation and sustainable growth. Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Press Perspective. It's October 28th here in Seoul. I'm in San-hee. The APEC CEO Summit begins with a welcome reception on this Tuesday evening before its opening ceremony tomorrow, that is Wednesday. That will be followed by 20 sessions on economic challenges, cooperation strategies and digital transformation up until its closing day on Friday. For more on this, I have Fabian Kretschmer with German press agency DPA here in the studio. Fabian, welcome back.
Great to be back in the studio.
I also have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 Live on the line. Chloe, it's good to have you on.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Fabian, we shall start here in the studio. So what is the APEC CEO Summit and what is its relevance, keeping, of course, in mind the current global trade environment?
Yeah, as the name indicates, it's a business summit. So all the big CEOs of international companies will be present. I think we are going to talk about the guest list in a moment. But I mean, really all the big companies, especially tech companies, will send representatives, usually the CEO. And I think the idea behind the CEO Summit is to have a bridge between the private economy and the government. So basically, I mean, personally, from a journalistic perspective, I don't expect the panel discussions, the public discussions to be super juicy or like relevant, because usually CEOs tend to be quite cautious and very diplomatic. But what will be spoken behind closed doors could be quite relevant. I mean, deals can be done, or just, you know, the CEOs will have an opportunity to relay their message, to tell what is in their interest. And right now, what we see is that there's a fragmentation of economic cycles. We see with geopolitical tensions rising that, you know, China is imposing its own rules, it has, you know, its own market that is becoming increasingly protectionist. The same actually on the US side. And then from the big companies, I mean, they are international operations. They cannot, you know, ignore the Chinese market and cannot ignore the US market. So their message most likely will be, we want to do business with both sides. And how can that be realistic? And how can we maybe reduce tensions between the Western and the Chinese world?
Right, and keeping in mind what Fabian has just said, Chloe, the APEC CEO Summit also includes addresses by global leaders. So who's on the speech roster and what do we know about their messages, Chloe?
So I would say the VIP, like the most important speech we're going to be waiting for, will be Donald Trump, the US president's key speech notes that will be delivered tomorrow during a luncheon with the CEO Summit participants. So we know that it's quite important because according to his current planning, he's not going to be attending most of the rest of the APEC Leaders Summit. So this speech notes, like this speech, is going to be very looked upon, especially regarding any hint on US tariffs, because most of the discussions are still going on for a lot of countries. So all the CEOs there are going to be having a look at what Donald Trump is showing off and what's the direction that could be taken by the US regarding the tariffs. There might also be some invitation from him for foreign investment to come into the United States. He has done it quite a lot in the very recent past. We've seen it in most of the cases. For example, when the Hyundai workers were arrested, afterwards he was speaking again about sending qualified people, but also sending investment, foreign investment into the US. Let's remember, for example, that for South Korea, the United States is asking South Korea to make direct upfront investment that would be worth around $350 billion. So we kind of expect him to be speaking about it in a broader, more general way about the world. Who else is going to be speaking? We have RM from the boys band, the K-pop band BTS, who will be there. He's the first K-pop artist ever who will be talking into the CEO summit, and he's expecting to be speaking about the rising global influence of Korean culture, so Korean soft power and Hallyu, as we've been speaking quite a lot about it here on the show. There's also the founder and CEO NVIDIA, so the American AI chipmaker, who is going to come. He's going to have some space. One of the panel he will be discussing. And as Fabian was saying, what most of the journalists are speaking about, especially with our colleagues from Reuters, saying that he might actually be meeting with some Korean shipmaking companies. He could be meeting with SK Hynix and Samsung, but the representative of both companies have, according to Reuters, declined to comment on it. But again, that's the big thing of the CEO summit, is putting together companies that could have discussion under closed door, and we'll see what can happen. And most of the big Korean groups representative are going to be there too. So we will see what will come out of this list of quite impressive guests.
Right, indeed. Fabian, so the CEO Summit, it's perhaps one of the most influential annual gatherings of corporate executives and government leaders in the Indo-Pacific. What has the foreign media been saying about the potential gains for South Korea as it hosts this event?
Well, I think the direct impact will also be on Gyeongju itself, because, I mean, as a host city, it will get a lot of media attention. It will also directly benefit from all the tourists and the participants also going to the city. So hotel profits, restaurant profits, reputation gains. I mean, that's a lot. There was actually a study done by the Korean Chamber of Commerce together with Deloitte, the consultancy agency. They guessed that, APEC will have a huge economic gain. There will be an impact of $5.3 billion, and it will create over 20,000 jobs. I mean, this is only the practical side, but directly from the CEO summit, it will give South Korea access to Donald Trump, who will, be very prominently featured during this event, which might lead to business opportunities, which also might lead to, getting maybe tariffs reduced. I mean, we don't know whether there will be a deal that South Korea and the US can strike, but at least they will get a lot of way to lobby. So I think there might be a lot of economic gain, but to really put this into numbers is kind of difficult, because let's see, a lot of things will happen behind closed doors, and sometimes maybe it will take some time to really see the impact.
Right, and speaking about numbers, Fabian, this is something you mentioned during our talk yesterday. Chloe, the local bourse here in the country opened its session on Monday by soaring past the 4,000 mark. Now, analysts believe investors are responding optimistically to planned bilateral summits between President Lee Jae-myung and his US counterpart Donald Trump, as well as that between Mr. Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. What have you been hearing on the ground here, Chloe?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see that the benchmarks of Korea Composite Stock Price Index, so the KOSPI, has been rising up. A 4,000 mark is a big deal. It's the first time in KOSPI history. It's especially the sector of semiconductors that have been driving the rise. So what we can see is probably that, excuse me, the semiconductors are driving because that's what's the most prominent sector at the moment. And according to experts, there is kind of a lucky draw of reasons. So global liquidity are being installed into the system because of the current instability, kind of. So the investors are going more into dangerous or risky assets. So there's more liquidity. And then, so the semiconductor cycle is going up again. And then there is also the fact that there's been market reforms done by President Lee Jae-myung administration that are working. My bad.
Right. Maybe, Chloe, we should give you a few minutes to catch your breath. And while we wait for that, Fabian, I will turn to you first. As South Korea's hosting of this year's APEC summit, Fabian, it's expected to put to test President Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy. Now, beyond the official APEC agenda, Seoul summit with Washington is expected to realign its ties with that country, while Seoul summit with Tokyo is expected to retain ties on the proper productive track, that is, while its summit with Beijing is expected to perhaps reinvigorate ties. What have you been hearing on the ground with regard to Korea's pragmatic diplomacy this week?
Yeah, I think you can call it pragmatic. When you look at what the South Korean government, the foreign ministry have been saying, the rhetoric is basically to please or try to please all sides. You can hear some subtle critique towards the US. Of course, they're not happy with the tariffs, but kind of trying to stay loyal also with in terms of security towards Japan. South Korea is also, at least willing to maintain good relationship, and I think that will work, at least if the new prime minister in Japan will not provoke any, revisionist, history. I mean, I think that's now up to her. But basically, South Korea is interested in having good relationship with Japan, and then to China. I think also what the South Korean foreign minister Cho Yeon told in a recent interview is we want to have a new start. I mean, our previous government, the conservative government under Yoon Suk-yeol, they were quite provocative. But I think we are open to re-establish ties. So that also sounds quite, positive. You can also critically analyze it and say, well, we don't really know what South Korea stands for in the world. You cannot always please everyone. But I mean, the position of South Korea is, in between big world powers. So I think it makes sense from the perspective of Seoul to try to be, pragmatic and also not take sides, but really try to get along with all the big powers in this region.
Right. Fabian, I understand you're closely following the Chinese delegation's agenda here in South Korea. Could you tell us a bit about your coverage?
Well, actually, my coverage of the Chinese strategy also towards Donald Trump, I have to revise a lot of my arguments. Why? Because, I mean, I always assumed that the Chinese side was not particularly interested in striking a big deal with Donald Trump. A lot of experts, for example, the former president of the European Chamber of Beijing, he's a German and he lived in China for several decades. He told me that, it seems that the strategy by the Chinese is to keep Trump busy, basically, give him some small success that he can blow up and present as a big success, but then maybe it will escalate again, and that it will be basically a game of negotiating through his whole term until basically Trump will step down and another president will be in power. But this is really not accurate anymore. I think now it seems that the Chinese side and the US side have found some kind of agreement, and I'm expecting that both sides will present a deal, maybe a big deal in terms of tariffs, all the other points of contention. So I think maybe it could be even a historic day on Thursday. And so the strategy of the Chinese, I think, right now is to play nice with the US.
Right, and we shall find out later this week when President Trump sits down with his Chinese counterpart here in South Korea. Of course, Chloe, welcome back. Hope you're feeling better now. Chloe, you were talking about the investor sentiment here in South Korea amid talk about bilateral summits between superpowers. Do tell us a bit more about the positive sentiment on the local stock market, Chloe.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I was just, start of winter here in Korea has been quite strong. So as I was saying, so there's a mix, a lucky draw kind of different factors that are working well together to make this big raise actually into the KOSPI. It has been raising 68.5% since the beginning of the year. So it's nice to see that the KOSPI is actually working again and gaining some strength. And so regarding the foreign media coverage here, there's been, for now, not that many coverage on the APEC summit, like Leader Summit itself, because it has not been done yet, so we don't have results. Europe has been mostly focusing on the Xi Jinping and Trump meeting together. So that's one of the big headlines that for now is being there. There's also some side coverages, especially on South Korea. So I was saying that what's driving the KOSPI index is the semiconductor. And it's true that it's something that's been discussed a lot in the European media is the AI and South Korea, South Korea has a big strategy on AI and semiconductors and new technologies. Also, trade deals in Asia with the United States. That's mostly linked to the fact that Donald Trump is doing a very big campaign, like going around in Asia, and he's been in ASEAN just recently. He's in Japan now. He'll be in Korea soon. So this is a good way for European media to speak a bit in detail about all the politics regarding the US in the different countries of Asia that he's been visiting. So that's mostly what's being done for now. And I can only imagine that just as for the CEO summit, there will be more developed coverage once we have facts and stuff happening that we can be talking about more in detail.
Right, for sure. Now, in speaking about media headlines with regard to the APEC summit here in the country, Fabian, this is an impromptu question, but keeping in mind your coverage of the Chinese delegation's agenda here in South Korea, there is quite a bit of speculation within the local media here in the country that President Xi Jinping might also address the APEC CEO summit in a speech. Keeping that in mind, what do you suppose might he seek to address during that potential speech?
Well, I think the message that Xi Jinping would likely convey is that, China stands for a multilateral order, that it does not want confrontation, that it wants a rule-based order. But I mean, personally, after also having lived quite some time in Beijing, I mean, I kind of see some discrepancy what is the Chinese official rhetoric and what it actually does. So I think that there is some contradiction also because right now I see neither of the big world power. I mean, neither Beijing nor Washington really standing in for a rules-based order. I think we rather move towards a more Darwinistic world, a Machiavelli world where power rules and the stronger power really dominates. But yeah, I think what China really wants to avoid is, at least that's what it says, is that they don't want a block building like during the Cold War. But actually, ironically, that's really what we are seeing right now, that there are two blocks forming. But what we can also see that maybe tomorrow could, or the day after tomorrow, could serve as a plot point, and that the dynamic could shift again a little bit. Right now, between China and the US, I see a lot of potential for de-escalation, and that would be definitely good for the whole world.
Right, and speaking of tomorrow, Chloe, President Lee Jae-myung delves into his diplomatic agenda on the margins of the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju. Could you walk us through some of the more anticipated summits, if you will?
Yeah, so he's obviously, because he's the leader of the host country, so we are expecting him to be at the big APEC summit moment. So it will be obviously at the CEO meeting that's starting tomorrow. And then it will be at the APEC leaders meeting from the 31st to the 1st of November. But what we're really looking at now is the main bilateral summits that are going to be expected. So We know he's going to meet with Donald Trump tomorrow on the 29th. The whole idea would be to try and get the deal on the tariffs done, but we're not sure if it's going to be possible. But we know that Yesan-gun is probably going to discuss with Donald Trump about modernizing the alliance with the US. So will it be possible to get a deal? Could that be done through speaking about the army and financial, giving more money to the US to keep the US army there? Will it be done through other way? We know that there's been also the MASGA, Make American Shipbuilding Great Again initiative that's been offered in the deals. So that's one of the big moments that we're expecting. Another one would be the meeting with Xi Jinping, so the Chinese president, on the 1st, so that would be Saturday, and the meeting with Japanese Prime Minister, the new Japanese Prime Minister, Sane Takashi. For both of them, there is interesting view to see how the diplomacy of Yesan-gun will be put to the test in real time, because those three countries are very important for South Korea in the diplomatic ties. And it's interesting to see, because the three of them are going to be there, and everyone is going to be meeting on bilateral meetings. So there will be questioning on how to try to keep, obviously, the American ally happy, but at the same time getting more deals maybe with China also. I think it's interesting to see what's going to go on with Japan, because the new prime minister, so that means a new relationship that has to be built. Would it be possible to continue the partnership as it was done before with the previous prime minister? This is a big question, because she's more nationalist, so probably less pro South Korea. So that's something that's need to be seen, and I think that it's going to be some busy days actually for President Yesan-gun. But I would also say I do expect it to be some very fruitful days there in Gyeongju for the APEC summit, and we'll see what's going on in the end. But I do believe that it's a good test for the diplomacy of Yesan-gun and pragmatism that is being putting forward. So let's see how it goes.
Right, we shall see how it goes. And busy days for you as well as members of the press, of course, Chloe. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today, Chloe. And Fabien here in the studio, thank you very much for your thoughts. Right, that ends Press Perspective for today. As always, thank you for watching.